Yankees in action tonight in Texas. Tanaka against Cologne, and the Marlins in town to take on the Mets. Hernandez against Vargas, who will try to see if he can somehow get past what has been just an incredibly bad performance this year in 3 starts. An ERA of almost 14. It's embarrassing. It really is. Phil and Hopog, what's up, Phil?
Hey, Mike, man. Good to hear you back.
Thank you. What's up?
So my question is that I'm a big Mets fan,
right.
And I went to all 3 games this weekend. And
really?
To me, yeah. I was happy. They're actually playing well. They had a nice weather. How to take advantage of that.
What nice weather?
But,
what day was it nice?
Yesterday was nice, Mike. Nice little breeze.
Well, yesterday was fair. I mean, the 2 other days it was rain. What was the rain delay the other night? 2 hours?
True. You got me on that. That's not my point, Mike. But yes, it was bad, rain delay. But I'm a diehard fan.
Right.
Hear me out, Mike. I have almost like an analogy. I want to know if you can compare it. If you see similarities. My biggest fear is that, how the ownership loves Sandy Alderson. How he, like you said before, how he kind of manages the money and makes the Mets somewhat relevant. I feel it's almost the same way as the Cincinnati Bengals and how they love Marvin Lewis. And why I believe that is because Sandy Alderson keeps him somewhat relevant. Like I said, he's awful with the bullpen, but enough. He hires, he brings in guys like Addison Reed. Okay, good job. But then he has guys like Frank Francisco or Anthony Swarzak. I've never even seen this guy pitch yet, and it's very frustrating. They have Omar Minaya come in, who here's a guy who helps the Mets with scouting because, God forbid, Sandy has a scouting guy who's not Brandon Nimmo because God knows he doesn't look like a star. And I just feel like, in a way, that he's Marvin Lewis. We're just happy with him. They're content with not really winning at all, just being relevant. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I mean, listen. Your point is you're basically trying to categorize ownership as being cheap because that's the Bengals' MO. There's something in sports, I don't know what causes it, but the franchises that are inherited by football iconic families the next generation seem to be very tight-fisted. It's kind of interesting because look at the Bengals. That's Paul Brown's franchise. The Bears, that's Papa George Halas's franchise. And those are the 2 tight-fisted franchises in the whole sport. And they're both family inherited from the great coach. And it seems to somehow lead to that. I don't know why. Fred in Jersey City, what's up, Fred?
Hello, Mike.
Yes,
welcome
Fred.
back. It's nice to talk to you again.
What's going on?
Mike, I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding the horse race, Justify. And let me just bang out the questions, then I'll listen to you. Just like in basketball and hockey, you got body checks, a lot of touch in basketball. Football plays pusher, wide receivers out. What would the strategy be for horses that aren't going to win, but maybe want to body slam, Justify? Would Baffert prefer an outside or an inside start out of the gate? Let me hang up. It's good to hear you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying is not crazy, but it's a little crazy. But what you're talking about is, would they rough the horse up? In mid-pack, they might give him a hard time. That has been known to happen. But he's a horse that's going to break clean and will be at the front of the race, so he will not be in any real problem. But would somebody give him a rough time in mid-pack? Yes, they definitely could. Gordon in Floral Park, what's up, Gordon?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Good.
Mike, just 2 quick questions. On the pedigree for Justify,
right?
It had, I can't remember who the sire was, but they have historically a problem with going at distances over 1.1 miles.
Well, Scat Daddy, Scat Daddy is not. He actually has been. Scat Daddy's gone now. Scat Daddy was while he was here. He was a sire that didn't last very long because he got I don't remember what. Mons, you can look it up. What year did he die? He passed away. Scat Daddy. He got ill, and which happens sometimes with the sires, and they had to put him down. I'm trying to remember, but Scat Daddy is 15. Okay, yeah, he didn't last very long as a sire, and he was a surprisingly good sire. He has started to, and his offspring became pretty coveted late because there weren't a lot of them, and they started to do very well on the track. You're right, he's not a classic sire, but remember, a lot of it comes from the dam, and on the dam side, I did not look at his. I don't remember what his numbers were. Are you trying to tell me that he has a number that is over 4? I mean, I don't know that I didn't look at his number, but he might not have the distance. I don't know that he has it or not. I did not look at him. But again, that can be outrun many times anyway. So, okay. I mean, there's some people who live by that stuff and will not bet the horse for that reason. But I've seen horses outrun that in the past. But again, remember, these horses don't go a mile and a half. They'll never go a mile and a half again. Horses, and the thing to remember is, everyone says, can you get a mile and a half? It's not about getting a mile and a half. It's about getting a mile and a half quickly. They can all get a mile and a half. It's a question of how quickly they can get a mile and a half. So they don't ever run this far. And that track is different because it's once around the track. That's the only mile and a half track in America. There's no other track in America that's a mile and a half around.
All right, one more question,
yes.
Mike. Related to that, I was hoping that when you had Baffert on, you were going to discuss this with him, but how did the situation with the conflicting ownership groups between Justify and McKinley work out?
I did not get into that with him because, the problem with this horse is, I'm sure
you're talking about?
I'm sure there were more than one conflict with this horse because the guys who own this horse probably had a third of the good 3-year-olds in existence this year because you have some of the top groups all locked in on this one group. A lot of them participate in racing on a very heavy level. You're talking about Windstar. You're talking about the China Horse Club. You're talking about Starlight Racing. You're talking about all these groups have major amounts of horses. So I'm sure there was some issues as to what horse they would run against at this point, what horse they would not run against, that kind of stuff. They face that every race. I think when you get to the Belmont, you don't want to put a horse against you that can beat you if you're talking about one of your groups. Now, sometimes that's a problem because, you get another ownership that wants to run in the race. There's not much you can do about that. And that has happened in this era of multiple, trainers having multiple horses in a race. This is a very unusual one because this is like, I can't even tell you how many ownership groups this horse has. I mean, he has more prominent ownership groups than I've ever seen in one horse. Audible is I'm sure there's about 5 horses that are conflicts. Audible is a conflict. There's a bunch of them. Who owns Audible? Windstar? Starlight owns Windstar. Oh, okay. So they all have, I'm sure they all have Triple Crown horses. And now that they're going for the Triple Crown, you would think they would not run these horses against them. They'd wait. I think now they'd meet them down the line, but they're not going to beat him for the triple. Before that, they would run against each other. That's just the way it goes. Now, this is always a point of contention. In the old days, this didn't come up. Now it comes up a lot. And it could come up with Baffert. And I can tell you, this would be a problem for me. If I had a horse with a trainer and he was in the Triple Crown and my horse had won the first 2 legs and he said to me, I'm entering this other horse in the race, that guy's not training for me anymore. I'm not at this stage. You're not going to beat me now for the Triple Crown. If you want to race your horse another time against me, I understand that. And I've been in races where I've had a trainer have more than one horse, have another owner have a horse in the same race. So be it. Let the best horse win. But when you're talking about winning something as special as Triple Crown, you got to move your horses somewhere else. You cannot come and compete at that level. So, and this is tricky because they have so many different ownership groups here now. This is the craziest thing I've ever, and I think it takes away from the lore and and really the appeal of racing because it's not what it's supposed to be about. But that is the economics of the sport now. Guys say, "Oh, I have a Triple Crown horse." The guy might have 1% of the horse. To me, that's not having a Triple Crown horse. If you have 1% of the horse. 5 o'clock, WFAN in New York. Here's the Mink Man.